So let's talk about building confidence for your sync licensing career. Now, in this presentation, we're going to go pretty deep into some psychological issues. I want to make sure it's very clear. I am not a therapist, I'm not a psychologist, and I'm not here to psychoanalyze anybody or to be a replacement for therapy or anything like that, okay? So I want to make sure that you guys are very clear. This is essentially just me sharing as much as I possibly can, breaking apart the inside of my brain and showing it to you through here on this PowerPoint presentation for the kind of thinking and the mindsets that have allowed me to do this full time, to start with where I was 12 years ago, having not much confidence in myself, just a belief that I thought I could do it, but definitely feeling like an imposter, definitely feeling like I didn't have all the answers, definitely a lot of uncertainty. Is this going to work out for me? Okay. And then going back, now 12 years and realizing, wow, like look at how I built my confidence up over the years. This presentation is going to basically give you all of those tips and those basically mind tricks that I played on myself in order to basically fake my way into the confidence. And that is what you're going to be doing here, okay? So if you do not feel confident in your skills, in your future, in sync licensing, in your knowledge, whatever it is, we'll talk about all those issues. Just know that the only way to get from wherever you are to the point where you feel confident is you will have to fake it, okay? It does not just come one day because you prayed to the gods or that you were meditating long enough and suddenly you just get this infusion of confidence. You have to pretend like you're confident, and I'll talk about how we're going to do that until you start to believe it. And then once you believe it, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and then you feel the confidence and you'll move forward. It's crazy, it's mind tripping, it's like the Matrix on acid, but it really does work. This stuff is actually what's really worked for me, so that's why I'm teaching it, okay? So let's ask, where are you right now? Where are you feeling? Where are your points of lack of confidence happening in your career right now? I want to make sure that you are aware that these are just bad thinking habits, okay? These are not who you are. They don't represent you, yourself, your soul, your person, whatever you want to call it. They're just the ways that your brain has been thinking, okay? I want to make sure we separate these thoughts from who you are. They are not who you are, okay? Some of you, most of you, are thinking this right now. I might not be good enough. I might not be able to produce well enough. Maybe my mixes aren't going to be good. Maybe I'm not going to be able to keep up with the workflow. Maybe. There's a whole bunch of, I don't know if I got what it takes. I might be sort of like, I don't belong in this industry. I'm just not professional enough. My website doesn't look good enough. I don't care what you say it is. That is definitely going on in a lot of your guys' brains right now. Another one, I don't have enough answers to get started, right? I don't quite understand everything that has to do with getting your royalties paid or cue sheets or working with libraries or exclusive or non-exclusive or how to create licensable tracks, or wherever you are in your career and in your starting point here, there's definitely there are things that you do not have the answer to right now. And how do I know that? Because I don't have the answer to everything 12 years into this business, okay? So a lot of you guys are hanging on to this, though, as a reason for not taking another step forward or just being worried about, is this going to really work out for me because I don't have all the answers yet. I'm not comfortable with an uncertain future. Now, this could be in terms of, are you going to make royalties or not? Like, is this actually going to turn out to be something that will be profitable enough for you to do full time? Or do you feel like you might be wasting years of your life towards something that won't even pay you? Or some of you might be worried about what's the future of the industry with AI coming on board, creating music, and streaming services going all over the place, and cable kind of being on the decline. Is our industry even going to make it for the next 5 or 10 years? Is this whole thing just about to collapse and blow up? And should I just maybe just not get started on this side of the industry? Very, very valid concern, very, very valid fear. And it also sort of drives a hole in you in terms of, do I have the confidence, right, to get up every single morning and push towards something that I don't really know if it's going to work out? So this is definitely eating away at a lot of your guys' confidence. And last but not least would be, are libraries just shelving my tracks? Or could a library just shelve my tracks after I get them accepted? So this could be if you have already been accepted and you're not really sure what they're doing, or you're about to submit to libraries, but you still are holding on to this one. And this is all causing this kind of lack of confidence that you really don't know, is it going to work? Is any of this stuff ever going to really work out for you? Okay. So let's go ahead and dive into these. Beforehand, though, I really want to make one thing very clear, what I just touched on. That none of those thoughts that we just went through are your natural state of mind, okay? None of them. They're actually just bad habits. Say, right now you have either an external, meaning somebody else in your past or maybe even in your present, told you that maybe you're not good enough, or told you, hey, you don't really know how everything works, so you probably should get started, or they just infused some sort of doubt or lack of confidence into you from their lack of confidence, right? Or, usually it's that whatever that voice was, whatever that person was in your life, created an internal conditioning process going on where you're constantly repeating these things over and over and over again. And it's causing you to actually only look at the negatives of the future as opposed to the potential positives. Okay. So this is where I'm not going to get into too many deep psychological topics here. But in terms of the people in our lives that either gave us confidence or pulled our confidence away from us, usually with childhood, usually with schooling, teachers, that kind of thing, or even it could be siblings. Sometimes those things linger, and most of the time they linger for the rest of our lives unless we directly become aware of it. It doesn't mean we have to make a huge confrontation for that person. It doesn't mean we have to have a huge victory speech we give them that we're going to take our power back. None of those things have to happen. In fact, all this stuff can happen quietly through a meditation practice for yourself, or just sort of giving yourself these positive affirmations, which we'll get into, okay? But just be aware that this is all just conditioning. This is just bad habits, just bad thinking. It's not who you are. The natural state of who you are is confident, is able to want to learn, is able to want to conquer the world. Why? Because that's who you were when you were a kid, right? Before any social conditioning came into any of us when we were younger, what did we want to do? We loved learning. We felt confident. We climbed on those rocks. We jumped off of tall things we probably shouldn't have been, right? We all had those experiences when we were kids. So this is how I know this is our natural state. And unfortunately, in our lives, depending on our families and our social situations, we kind of get steered into some negative thinking, some things that don't really work out. As I said before, I just created a bad habit. It's not who you are. It's not your natural state of mind. It's not what your brain automatically does. It's just basically it might feel like it's automatic because you've been doing it for so long that you're like, oh, that's just what my brain does. It's not actually what your natural brain, the state of your brain actually is. It's just a bad habit that's been constantly run so many times. It's like a system that just keeps going and it's on autopilot. It feels like it, okay? But just separate that from who you really are. Actively put positive thoughts into your mind. If you don't actively do this, okay, so you kind of just, okay, I'm aware that I have some negative thinking, but then you don't actively, consciously put a different set of thoughts into your head and repeat them through affirmations, through meditation, through any other type of sort of getting this new way of thinking into your head. If you don't actively do that, it will not happen on its own. You have to consciously choose, write things down, say them to yourself, write it down. Say it to yourself 15 times a day, or whatever it is you want to do, or meditate on these kind of things, or paint a picture of it, or I don't care, listen to music, listen to a podcast, watch this video over and over again. You have to actively put positive thoughts into your head. I forgot who said it, but somebody said like your brain is going to be thinking anyways. It actually might have been Donald Trump in one of his books, but your brain's going to be thinking anyways. You might as well put positive thoughts in it. Or maybe he said something about thinking big. That might have not been him. Sorry about that. But somebody said your brain is just going to be randomly thinking anyways. Think about it. How many random thoughts do you get in your head a day? It's weird. It's just random weird thoughts about who knows what. So it can happen. Your brain can do two things. It can put random thoughts in your head where if you're not being conscious of them, they can be negative and they can be, digging into your confidence. Or you can actively decide, I want to think about something, and your brain is able to do that. So there's your massive, massive superpower right there where you can actually control what you think about and what kind of thoughts you want to have running through your head as often as possible, okay? Instead of focusing on just what might not work out, which is basically what all of those four issues were we talked about in the previous slide, instead of focusing on just what things might not work out, what you're not sure of, why you might fail, focus on what will work out, or at least what might work out for you, right? We are choosing with these kind of questions and these kind of fears that we're dealing with of what are we really focusing on? We're only focusing with those last four on what could all go wrong for us. My tracks get shelved. I'm not really good enough to do this. I won't have all the answers and I'll miss something big and then I'll lose out on all this money, right? These are all what if things go really, really bad for us. But what's missing? The yang, the yin to the yang. I don't know which one's supposed to be positive or negative, but we need to have a little bit of balance on here. It's okay to have some doubts, some uncertainties, and we're all human beings. But zoom out a little bit and realize that you are only focusing on half of the equation with those kind of fears. You need to come all the way out and realize that there are things that can and will work out for you if you have the right approach, right? So when you have a more full 10,000 foot view of what you're doing here, it's not so scary. And right now, through this presentation, we're going to create new ways of thinking. And it's going to definitely set you free from those really unhelpful cycles, those spinning, those negative spirals that we get into that we just talked about. All right, you ready? Let's get going. So you might not be good enough. Okay, I felt that way before when I first got started. Big fear I was dealing with. The root cause of this is obviously inadequacy, the imposter syndrome, feeling like, I'm calling myself a sync licensing producer, but at some point somebody's going to realize that I'm really not good enough and I'm just going to get booted out of this industry and exposed for being the fraud that I really am, right? Some of you guys might actually feel that way. I felt that way because I knew my tracks were not as loud, not as impactful, not as well produced as the competition when I first got started in this business. And I definitely felt when I saw that, I'm the odd one out here. I'm the only one that doesn't have like the louder tracks, and I'm the one that doesn't have the great sounding samples. Now I can see all that. Back then I might have been deluding myself, but I definitely can relate to that feeling of like, I don't know if I'm really supposed to be in this industry. So here's a question for you. Who on planet Earth has ever been born with every skill they needed to succeed, right? They were just born and they're, let's say for sync licensing, their mixes at age 0, right? When they popped out of the womb, had great producing skills, great mixing, could do, whatever, hybrid tracks. They could create cinematic, orchestral, beautiful trailer pieces, right? It's ridiculous. No such thing. Okay. So there is no single person that was born with the skill, with all the skills needed to succeed. Every single person that jumps into this business starts where they are. And I started where I was, which was not entirely where I wanted to be, but I still got started. And I'm really glad that I just jumped in and got started, because where I was where I was. And for me to go, well, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. Again, looking at that one half of the equation of like, I don't know if it'll work out for me, as opposed to the other side going like, yeah, it's not the greatest I've ever done, and maybe I can do better. I'm not exactly happy with it, but it's good enough to get started, and I think that I can really provide value to this industry, and I will learn as I go along, okay? So keeping a different perspective on that, realizing that like nobody has every single skill that on day one they're just going to completely master everything, okay? This is just ridiculous. But some people, because they don't examine these sort of deeper issues, are kind of assuming that other people are just jumping into this business immediately and going like, oh, cool, yeah, I got it all figured out, no problem. There's not one single person on planet Earth that has it that easy, okay? And your problems really aren't special. I had a friend who he wanted to learn how to edit video, and he kept on calling me and going, man, I'm struggling. It's really frustrating. I can't figure this out. I can't figure that out. Like, how'd you figure it out? Like, you're so good at it and you've been doing it for so long, and I just don't know why it's so hard for me. And I kind of stopped him in his tracks and I said, you know what? That's being very egocentric of you and very narcissistic for you to think that I didn't go through the same struggles, right? The way that he phrased that was like, well, Jesse, it was so easy for you. You just open up the program, you started editing videos, there's no problems. Like, that's not what happened at all. I opened up a video and a video editing program, and hit my head against the keyboard 1,000 times before I figured out how to actually start doing it the right way. So I started off very slow, very small, did tiny little tasks, not a lot, didn't overwhelm myself. Over the course of years, I started getting really good at video work. So as soon as I gave him that and I said, like, you're not that special and your problems really aren't that special. You're not the only one that's struggling with learning how to do whatever you want to do, especially for all of you guys learning how to get into sync licensing. So just keep that in mind. You're not special. Your problems aren't special. Your struggles that you're going through are not just for you, right? And when you stay stuck in that zone, especially when you don't reach out to other producers and realize, hey, like, we're all kind of dealing with this, or a lot of us are dealing with this, you start to really get burned out and bummed out because you feel more alone in the world, where it's like, oh, well, I guess it didn't work out for me because it was just really hard for me. That's a myth. It's hard for everybody, okay? Who in your past told you that maybe you wouldn't be good enough? Now, this is, again, one of those things where you need to do some deep soul searching, do some remembering. Maybe there's some meditation you can do, or you can kind of really think about it. And again, the point of this is not to go like, it was my dad. He told me that I wouldn't amount to anything, and now I'm going to tell him to screw off. Like, I'm not telling you to do anything like that. In fact, I think sometimes you don't have to go back in the past or even confront people that are still alive and let them know how they affected you. And sometimes it is really just about yourself and letting it go and realizing that hurt, that made you suffer, that wasn't fun for you. And obviously you're paying the price now still, but don't let that person keep making you pay the price, right? You can, from today on, decide, you know what, it's up to me if I want to let that go. And then, whether or not you want to forgive them, totally up to you. I personally believe that forgiveness is the only path to live a much better life for yourself, is to realize, they did the best that they could. They made a mistake. Hey, I've made mistakes too, and I'm sure I've wronged people in my life. I know I've wronged people in my life. And part of being a human being is giving people second chances and realizing, hey, they, whatever, let's move on. Because when you don't, just my personal opinion, when you don't forgive people, even people that have done maybe some damage to you, You hold on to the resentment. You hold on to the bitterness. You hold on to the anger. And so that's your poison that you carry around with you. It's extra weight on your journey towards whatever you want to get out of life. So not to be too preachy on that, you decide what you want to do, but it might be worth just kind of zooming in a little bit into your past and deciding, who was it that really kind of started to put this into my path? Because once you identify it, then you start to be clear on like, oh, that isn't me. That's somebody else. Like somebody else told me this, and I kind of absorbed it and started believing it for myself. But it probably, and I guarantee you, it isn't you. It's some other voice or some other force. Okay. Remember this: no one is going to believe in you or your sync licensing career more than you will. Not even me. Okay. I believe in you guys. I want the best for you. That's why I'm doing everything that I'm doing here to try to encourage you. But I'm not paying your bills. I'm not responsible for your bills, okay? I'm not, at the end of the day, when I'm on my deathbed, I'm not going to be thinking about your life and your choices. I'm going to be thinking about my life and my choices, okay? So if you are not your biggest cheerleader and you're not out there going like, absolutely, I can do this, and I might not have all the answers, and I don't know if I'm there yet, but I'm going to go for it, and I really believe in myself. If you're not doing that, who are you expecting to do that? Nobody else is going to come around and do that for you, okay? Hopefully you got a supportive spouse and supportive family or friends or something like that. And obviously in here at Sync Academy, we're all rooting for each other. But really, you have to take responsibility, the biggest chunk of responsibility for who's going to root you on, especially when times are tough. So just remember that. Fake it till you make it. I did. That's what got me to where I am. I did not in the beginning think that I was a professional, worthy sync licensing producer that would do this for as long as I did it. But I just did it. I just started doing it, learning, getting better, failing a bunch of times, getting things wrong, not getting things right, correcting those mistakes, going over and over and over again, to the point where I started realizing that like, okay, it's sort of like it's a puzzle to solve. And when I solved it enough times, I realized, okay, I'm competent in this and I can do it. I built up my confidence by just showing up over and over again and, making a lot of mistakes and just making sure I corrected those mistakes. So you probably won't feel confident in the beginning. I want to make sure you guys are aware of that you won't feel 100% confident when you get started. Like, think about the last time you worked at a new job. Were you confident on day one? No. Most of the time, it takes a couple of days, maybe even a couple of weeks or months to finally feel like, okay, I belong here and people know me and I can kind of like be a little bit more loose, right? It takes time though. So sometimes just showing up with a big smile and introducing yourself to everybody on the job, like, how you doing? I'm here. And you pretend like you're a confident person, people will act and treat you like you're a confident person, and then you'll start to feel the confidence come through. So don't wait for a natural feeling to come through. Put the actions in, and then the feeling comes later. And remember, you don't have to be the best in a catalog or the best at making music to win. I am nowhere close to the best, whatever that is, in this business. Never won an award, never been nominated for anything like that. And I don't even think in the libraries that I work in, I'm probably one of the top 10 producers or composers on their catalog. Still did it full time though. Still was making royalties, still was doing really well with it. So just remember, you don't have to be top of the top to actually do well in this business, okay? You can actually just be adequate, licensable, in the door, and useful for the people that you work with, okay? Moving on, I don't have all the answers to get started. Big common one that we've talked about in Sync Academy many times before. Root cause of this one, fear of the unknown, lack of control. We can't really control all the different variables, or if you're going to miss out on something and screw something up and just go, oh, because I didn't know, and now my whole career is just down the tubes, right? So we're just kind of like, what do you do with that unknown? You don't really know what you don't know. And especially in this business, because it's so weird and kind of niche, it's not common sense. There's a lot of stuff that you just kind of have to figure out. Luckily, all of you guys that are watching this are in Sync Academy, so you guys are figuring out how this stuff actually works. But it's very, very common to feel this way, okay? So spoiler, 12 years in, almost 13 at this point, I don't have all the answers either, okay? I know a lot. I definitely have a lot of points of information that I've learned throughout not just my experience, but now educating 3 or 4 years with a lot of you guys. You guys have brought a lot of stuff to my attention, but almost every month when I do my Q&As for Sync Edge, there's always a couple of questions that I'm like, interesting. I actually don't know. So should I give up? I guess that means I should retire. I should be done. I shouldn't do sync licensing, right? Because there was a couple of things I didn't know. You see how ridiculous that sounds? It's like, no, it's not. This is not what you need. You don't have to have an all or nothing sort of approach, thinking like, well, because I don't have every single answer that I could possibly have, that I shouldn't get started. It's ridiculous. And it is a form of procrastination, believe it or not, because especially for a lot of you guys that get into the tutorial binging, right? Which I don't like it when you guys do it in Sync Academy, where you're just tutorial, but you don't go work and start making music and start doing stuff, right? It's this kind of idea of like, well, I don't have every single answer yet. I haven't watched every tutorial yet, so I shouldn't get started. No, you should get enough to just get something done today, and then tomorrow you'll learn more, okay? You don't need to do it all at once. What's more important than having all the answers, which is impossible, right? It's just being willing to learn and adapt. Like if you can learn new concepts and new topics and you can adapt your strategy or your focus based on that new knowledge, what do you need to have all the answers for? In fact, having all the answers will actually work against you because knowledge changes and the industry changes from time to time, especially in this changing technological world right now. So it's so much better to just have enough knowledge to get started and then be in this sort of like learn and adapt where you're kind of nimble and you're sort of on a surfboard or willing to move with the wave as it goes with you, okay? Not being so rigid like, well, I have every single knowledge and every single piece, so I'm just going to go this way. That's not a path to success. You have to improvise. You have to kind of go with the flow of how this industry works. Just focus on what you need to know today, okay? What are you working on today? I need to learn how to compress some drums, how to compress a snare. Just learn that, okay? Today I actually have my, let's say, 12-track album done. I need to find a library to submit it to. Just look into that, research that, okay? Whatever the one thing is that you need to learn today, just get that knowledge and let tomorrow worry about itself. And you'll learn more tomorrow. You're going to learn every single day, okay? You don't need to overwhelm yourself with bombarding yourself with all this stuff. And in fact, most educators will tell you that the best way for you to absorb information is not to binge, is not to watch hours and hours and hours of material and thinking it's all going to get stuck in your head, because it won't. The best thing actually is just to learn one tiny little concept, practice it, putting it into action or using it in some form, and then moving on to another. That's how you're going to retain information. Of course, you guys are in Sync Academy, so reach out if you don't have an answer to a particular question that you need to know today that you think would help, which is basically getting in your way of making that next one step that you can make today, okay? Series of steps towards full-time income. That's all you do in this business. It's not like a giant leap. It's one little thing you do today leads to one little thing tomorrow, and next week and next month and next year, and down the road, you'll see that there's results from that, okay? Now, this is a big one. I'm not comfortable with an uncertain future. Wow. Don't think this is at all unique to sync licensing. This is just a human being thing, okay? And that's why I put it here, root cause. This is just what human beings do. A lack of control, right? We can't control the future, and so we're living on this planet that's spinning around a exploding ball of gas, and it's like, what's going on here? Where is the future going to be? What are we going to do, okay? This is a fun one. Go ahead and name for me right now an industry that you could be a part of starting today that has a definite, certain future, that you know exactly where things are going to end up, you know it's going to be profitable, and you know it's going to be a good use of your time. I'll wait. It doesn't exist, of course. There's no such thing as knowing what tomorrow is going to bring. That is not a thing. It does not exist. Nobody can tell you anything about the future. So sometimes the reason why I put this up there is because people think that, well, because sync licensing is so uncertain, I don't know if I should get started with it. I'll go get into real estate. You can see how the lack of, it's just not good thinking right there, because so real estate is guaranteed to go up forever. It's guaranteed, like in the next couple of years, we're guaranteed to do that, or it's a good time to invest. Like it's sort of this false dichotomy of thinking that there are some certain things and there are some uncertain things. All things are uncertain, right? Every career path you go down is uncertain because it's not happened yet. By definition, the future has not happened yet. So how could you be certain of something that has not happened yet, okay? So basically just kind of being more realistic about it, realizing that you don't have a choice between certainty and uncertainty. You just have choices between different uncertainties, okay? Maybe that would help a little bit. I always like to look for where the energy is heading, though, to get a better idea of where I think I could guess where a future of a business is going to be or the future of an industry is going to be. Where is the energy heading, right? So right now, you're probably noticing that the energy for entertainment is heading into many different outlets. There's so many streaming platforms. There's new VR content coming out. There's video games that are exploding all over the place. Obviously, movies, independent movies. There's YouTube content and video content. If you look at how much is going into that right now on planet Earth, it's probably one of the biggest industries on planet Earth. And all of that stuff needs music, okay? So as I see it, it looks very promising because it's like, well, that's where all the energy is going. So if everybody's energy is going in one particular direction, I kind of want to be on that train to ride that wave wherever it goes. It might not work out great. We don't know the future, but at least we know that there's a lot of energy heading that way, right? So right now, if video content was going out and people were just getting more into just books. For some reason, books were just now the whole thing, and people were just turning off their TVs and not watching streaming and not watching YouTube channels or something like that, and everybody's just reading books. Well, energy would be go like, how can I serve this book industry, right? That's where you'd want to kind of like get into that channel to realize that's where all the energy is going. But you take a look around, you find out where the energy is going and see where you can serve that, okay? As I said before, life is a wave, and that means that things go up and down and side to side, and you're going to be pushed off your balance, and you're going to feel uneasy. You're not going to know where to go. So you get to choose, make your choice. Do you want to ride it and enjoy that ride, or do you want to drown in it, right? Do you want to be a victim of the wave, or do you want to actually have fun with the wave? Because there is no such thing as certainty as a flat glass lake that you just get to paddle across and have no problems. That's not life. That's not what we go through in this industry or in anything on planet Earth. So if you accept from day one, you have this expectation like, oh, it's going to be a wave, so it's going to be kind of exhilarating sometime and like lift me up, and another time it's going to let me down really fast and kind of keep me in this little lull for a long time, and I'm not going to know when I'm going to come back up, right? We talk about that with our sort of path towards success. What do you want to do about it? It's there. I mean, it is a wave. You can't change that, right? You got to have the knowledge and the wisdom to know I can't change the wave. The wave is underneath me. Should I ride it, or should I just drown in it, right? And just be afraid of it and not be able to adapt with it, right? And learn new information. I think this is one of those things that a lot of people call me crazy for, but I think it's true. I think you can author your own future with affirmations, meditation, positive thinking that we're going to talk about at the end of this presentation. But you don't have to just sort of accept things happening to you. You can be a participant in all of this kind of stuff. You can sort of start to carve out your way into this world and become much more proactive and powerful in your own life, and not just be subject to the wave and the changes and the things that just hit you, but you can actually be a participant, right? That's why I want to end us on this. Are you a victim of your life or a participant in it, right? So are things just happening to you and you just keep getting knocked off the wave and you're in the water and I got to get back up, right? And you're just like, it's just so hard and I can't do this. Does that summarize where you are in a mind, your mentality? Or are you more of the surfer? You're a participant in it, right? There is force. There is this kind of thing that you can't control, and it's kind of pushing us in weird, interesting directions. But we're going like, cool, I'm going to ride this thing, right? I'm not going to let it just knock me over and then sit there and complain in the ocean about it. Like, why am I getting knocked over, right? Waste the time. If you want to be successful, start participating in your life. Don't be a victim of it. So last but not least, let's talk about this one, which is really big. Could libraries just be shelving my tracks? So before you've submitted to them or after you've submitted to them, could they just be sitting on them? Root cause is obviously, this is us, believe it or not, wishing for success, because we're just like, well, I'm just going to send them whatever, and I hope that somebody picks them, because it's a very passive sort of like fear of like, could they just be sitting on my tracks? Because there's a lot more to this question than this one little statement holds. So we're going to talk about that. And obviously, part of that is that there's a lack of a clear purpose of what you're doing in this business when you're wishing for something to happen for you, right? We don't wish for success in sync licensing. We serve, right? We know what we can do to actually increase our chances of being placed and getting our tracks out there so that our tracks don't collect dust. So first of all, yes, they could shelve your tracks. Any library obviously could shelve some or all of your tracks. But this is how you're going to counteract it, right? Because we're not going to just sit there and be drowning in the wave. We're going to ride it. This is what you're going to do by riding it. You're going to create licensable tracks. Not just tracks that you think are cool, not just tracks that you think are awesome, that you are enjoying, but tracks that really serve the needs of the library that you're working with. So you've researched their catalog, you know what kind of music really gets placed well for them, you know the quality that they're dealing with, you know how to structure your tracks so they're extremely licensable, because you've probably watched a lot of the tutorials in Sync Academy for how to do that, right? And of course, you're going to be emailing them, calling them, and you really want to make sure that you can serve their needs, which is really serving their clients' needs, right? So not just going, hey, I want to make 12 tracks of hip hop music. Here you go. Rather than doing that, say, what are you guys working on right now? What do your clients need? Do your clients need any hip hop right now? Because yeah, they could accept your hip hop tracks, but if they don't have a current need for it right now with their clients, they might just put it on the shelf and go, well, maybe in a year or two, we'll need some hip hop. So yeah, we'll take it. Might be good for the library, not necessarily good for you, right? So if you're not communicating with them and you're not making sure that your tracks are absolutely serving whatever their current needs are, then yeah, you're going to be stuck in this like, well, I sent music to them, but how come I'm not getting my placements? Did you do any of this stuff? Did you ride the wave? Or are you now sitting at the bottom of it wishing that you weren't drowning in it, right? Of course, you're going to have a personal relationship with them. They're going to know you. They're going to have your phone number. They're going to have your email address, right? And they're going to really care about you as a human being, and you're going to care about them as a human being. And you should be showing that, okay? You should be emailing them, checking up on them, seeing how they're doing, asking them how they're doing through, whatever they're going through, right? And treating them like human beings, not just like a bank that you're trying to just get money out of, but really like an actual person that you want to have a relationship with, okay? You're always free to move on if you don't see meaningful action from a library, okay? You don't have to be stuck to one company the rest of your career. In fact, I've worked with 10 libraries, probably actually even more than 10 libraries in my 12 years in this business. I don't have any marriages, okay? I am not married to anybody. I do exclusively stay tied when I have an exclusive contract with them. I don't break any of those agreements, but you are not tied to any particular library. Sorry about that. You're not tied to any particular company in this industry. You absolutely have the right to go back and forth or leave one if you're not seeing the actual placements or the communication or whatever it is that you feel you should be getting to feel confident in them. So trust your gut on that. If you've lost your confidence in a company, it might be time to move on, okay? So just remember, you have the power in this. You don't have to be stayed married to anybody for your entire career. In fact, I guarantee you're going to work with as many or more that I have, okay? So remember those 4 statements at the beginning? They were all thinking about the half that was negative. We're going to now go to the positive, and this is where you're going to be starting now, okay? So feel free to write these down, repeat them to yourself, whichever one really resonated with you, or maybe all 4. These are the new things you should start saying to yourself, writing down, putting on the wall as an affirmation. I don't care how you do it, but start actively, purposefully, consciously putting this between your ears, okay? Simple. I am good enough. Easy, right? I am good enough. I don't care if you don't believe it. I don't care if that feels weird to say. I don't care if you're just like, oh, I don't know, that's cheesy. I don't want to say that. I don't care. Say it to yourself. Believe it. Repeat it over and over rather than, you probably won't believe it, but like repeat it over and over again, write it down over and over again, and fake it. Just start putting this conscious positive thought into your head, okay? So instead of saying I need all those answers, I don't think I have them all, you can say I don't need all the answers to get started. Easy, right? So much more empowering than, well, I don't have all the answers, so I can't get started. Well, you know what? I don't think I'll need every single answer to get started. I could probably get started on something today, right? Really powerful one. I will conquer an uncertain future, right? So rather than worried about, well, what if this happens? What if that doesn't happen? Realizing that all futures are uncertain. All paths you take in your life are uncertain. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So rather than just going, well, what if bad? Start with, I will conquer it. I will succeed. I will do well. I will find my way. I will surf the wave through an uncertain future. However you want to phrase it, we're going now and putting some balance into our mind. So now we're not completely stuck on the negative side. And last but not least, I will serve my library with licensable tracks. So rather than worrying, will they get shelved? Will they do this? Will I waste all my time? All that negativity, you gotta go, okay, I will serve my library with licensable tracks. I will serve their needs. I will communicate with them. I will do my best to ensure that my tracks pop off the shelf in how I market them, how I label them, the titles of my tracks, which is another really powerful tutorial in Sync Academy. If you haven't watched that, you should be marketing and titling your tracks in a really specific way and making sure that you're creating very high quality licensable tracks for them in general for the types of clients and projects that they work in, okay? So with these 4 statements now, we've moved away from that negativity and we're putting a positive set of thinking skills into our head, okay? Really powerful stuff, fairly simple to understand. Now is where the hard part is. You need to actually start doing this stuff, not just watch this tutorial and be like, all right, I'm good. No, if you're not actually repeating these things to yourself, writing them down, putting them on your wall, actively putting these new positive thoughts in your head, this will all just wash out in a couple of days. Guarantee it. You might be feeling good right now. It will wash out in a couple of days. You'll be right back to where you are. I'm telling you, you have to consciously put this stuff into your head. So with that being said, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed, and I really hope you put this stuff into action.